The twin suns bled orange across the cracked expanse of the ashen wastes, painting long shadows that clawed at the edges of the watering hole like desperate fingers. Jax crouched at the rim of the shallow pool, the herd's water, clear as fractured glass yet laced with the faint, metallic tang of the minerals that sustained the massive, horned titans who claimed this place. His hands shook as he filled the dented canteen, the liquid sloshing softly, cool against his blistered palms. Every breath burned in his lungs. 3 days without water had turned his throat into sandpaper, his vision into a hazy tunnel. But he didn't drink first. Not yet. Kalara stood a pace behind him, her towering frame rigid as a blade forged in starfire. The alien warrior's iridescent scales caught the dying light in shifting violets and golds, the intricate tattoos of her clan, swirling marks of battles won and kin lost, pulsing faintly along her forearms. Her golden eyes, slitted like a predator's, flicked from the pool to the distant thunder of hooves on the horizon. The herd was out there, restless, their low grunts rolling like distant thunder. One wrong move, one stolen sip without their unknowable blessing, and the ground would shake with their charge. She had told him that much in the terse hours since their uneasy alliance had begun. 2 survivors of the crash, human and Vayari, enemies yesterday, bound today by nothing more than the need to keep breathing. He rose slowly, turning to her with the canteen extended like an offering at a temple. Sweat carved pale tracks through the dust on his face, but his jaw was set, steady. "Take it," he said, voice rough as the gravel under their boots. "You're stronger than me, but even you can't run forever on nothing. Drink." Her gaze locked on the canteen. For a heartbeat, something flickered behind those golden eyes, surprise, maybe, or the ghost of a wariness deeper than distrust. She had fought his kind across the stars, shattered human ships with her war cry and left their crews broken in the void. Yet here he was, this soft-skinned soldier with no scales to armor him, no claws to rend, offering her the herd's water as if it were his to give. As if her life mattered more than his own parched throat. "I do not accept gifts from enemies," she said, the words clipped, laced with the low hiss of her native tongue. Her hand hovered near the hilt of her curved blade, not quite drawing, but close enough that the air between them tightened. "The herd marks this water. To drink without right is to invite their wrath. You know this. Why offer what could kill us both?" Jax didn't lower the canteen. His arm ached from holding it out, but he kept it steady, eyes never leaving hers. The emotional weight of the moment pressed on him like the planet's heavier gravity, memories flashing unbidden, the way she had dragged him from the burning wreckage 2 nights ago, her claws gentle despite their sharpness, the way he had stood between her and the scavenger pack that had nearly torn her apart at dawn. They had bled for each other already. Enemies once, yes. But the wastes had a way of stripping titles down to bone. "Because I'm not your enemy anymore," he said quietly. "Not out here. Not when the only thing keeping us alive is each other. Drink, Kalara. Please." The word "please" hung between them, fragile as the surface tension on the pool. Her scales rippled along her throat, a tell he had learned to read, conflict, pride warring with the deep, gnawing thirst that hollowed her cheeks and dulled the fire in her eyes. She was Vayari elite, bred for conquest, taught from hatching that weakness was a blade turned inward. Accepting aid from a human? It would shame the ancestors whose names she carved into her skin each victory. Yet the herd's distant calls grew louder, the ground humming faintly beneath their feet. Time was a noose tightening. She drew a slow breath, the sound ragged. "You test me, human. You think offering this binds me? That I will owe you my honor?" Her voice cracked on the last word, just enough to betray the storm beneath, fear not of the herd, but of what yielding might mean. Of the way his steady gaze had begun to unravel the warrior's armor she wore like a second skin. In the long silences of their trek, she had caught herself watching him, the way he limped but never complained, the quiet courage that refused to break even when the sky had fallen on them both. It stirred something dangerous in her chest, a warmth she had no name for in her tongue. Emotion she had been trained to carve out. Jax's lips pressed into a thin line. The canteen felt heavier now, the water inside a promise and a peril. His own heart hammered, not just from dehydration but from the raw vulnerability of the moment. He had lost his squad to the crash, watched good people burn while he crawled free. Offering her the water first wasn't strategy, it was the last piece of himself he could give before the wastes claimed them. If she refused, fine. He would carry the weight. But gods, he didn't want to watch her fade. Suit yourself, he said at last, the word soft, almost gentle, carrying no bitterness, only a quiet acceptance that sliced deeper than any shout. He brought the canteen to his lips. Kalara's eyes widened, the golden slits flaring in stunned disbelief. No. He couldn't. He drank. The sound was intimate, almost profane in the stillness, the gulp of liquid sliding down his throat, his Adam's apple working once, twice, 3 times as he drained half the canteen in deep, deliberate pulls. Cool relief flooded his parched body, chasing the fire from his veins, but he didn't stop to savor it. Not yet. He lowered the canteen, water glistening on his cracked lips, and met her gaze head-on. A faint tremor ran through him, not poison, not yet, but the knowledge of what he had just done. The herd's water, taken without their leave, offered first to her as a bridge, then claimed by him as a stand. She stood frozen, the warrior who had felled empires reduced to stillness. Her breath caught sharp in her chest, scales flaring with a rush of heat that had nothing to do with the sun's. Stunned, that was the only word for the avalanche crashing through her. He had offered it to her, a gesture so raw it bordered on sacred in the old Vayari rites she had long dismissed as myth. Water from the life source, extended not as conquest but as equality. And when pride had made her refuse, he had not hurled it back into the pool in anger. He had drunk. Claimed the risk for himself. Proved, in one defiant swallow, that his word was not wind. The ground trembled again, stronger now. Hooves in the distance, drawing nearer. The herd had sensed the disturbance, the ripple of intent across their ancient bond to the pool. Dust rose on the horizon like a warning veil, and still Kalara could not move. Her claws flexed at her sides, heart slamming against her ribs with a force that made her vision swim. Emotion surged, intense and unbidden. Awe at his recklessness, terror that the toxins her people whispered about, the one said to twist human blood into fire, would claim him before her eyes. Regret, sharp as a blade, for letting pride blind her when he had seen her clearly. And beneath it all, a fierce, terrifying pull toward this fragile human who drank death to spare her the choice. Jax, she whispered, the name foreign and intimate on her tongue. Her hand lifted, hovering inches from his arm, not touching but close enough that the heat of her scales brushed the air between them. You fool. You drank what I would not. The herd comes now, they feel the taking. Why? He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, the canteen still extended toward her like a challenge now fulfilled. His eyes, bloodshot but clear, held hers with a depth that made her scales prickle. Because someone had to, he said, voice steady despite the growing rumble underfoot. And if it was going to be one of us? I wanted it to be me. So you could see I'm not here to break you, Kalara. I'm here to stand with you. Even if it kills me. The words landed like a blow to her core. Tears, actual moisture, rare as rain in the wastes, burned at the corners of her eyes, unshed but there, betraying the warrior code that demanded iron. She had lost clans to humans, watched her world's borders shrink under their advance. Yet this one man, dust-caked and half-dead, had just rewritten the script of their shared ruin. The emotional intensity of it clawed at her, the stunning realization that his sacrifice wasn't strategy or pity, it was trust, pure and terrifying, laid bare in the swallow of forbidden water. Her chest tightened, breath shallow, as the first silhouettes of the herd crested the ridge. Massive shoulders rolling, horns catching the sunset like spears. Suspense coiled in the air, thick as the dust now swirling around their ankles. Would the water poison him? Would the herd charge before she could drag him to safety? Or had his act, reckless and human, somehow shifted the balance, bound them not just in survival but in something deeper, a pact the wastes themselves might honor? Kalara's blade hand twitched, but she did not draw. Instead, she stepped closer, close enough that their shadows merged on the cracked earth. The canteen brushed her fingers as she finally took it from him, her touch lingering a fraction too long. "You stun me," she breathed, voice thick with the storm inside, admiration warring with fear, pride crumbling under the weight of connection. "No warrior of my blood has ever." "Suit yourself," you said. "And now the herd comes, and I." She trailed off, golden eyes searching his face for signs of the death she half expected, finding only quiet resolve. The rumble grew to a roar, the ground shaking hard enough to send pebbles skittering into the pool. Yet in that suspended heartbeat, before the charge or the poison or the end could claim them, she felt it, the first crack in her armor, wide and irreversible. He had drunk the herd's water he had offered her, leaving her not just stunned but seen, truly seen. For the first time in her long, lonely war. The herd thundered closer. Jax's hand found hers, steady despite everything. And Kalara, the alien warrior who had never yielded, gripped back. The scene held, taut as a bowstring, emotion and suspense twisting into one unbreakable thread, two survivors, one pool, a single defiant drink that might save them or doom them both. But in that moment, under the bleeding suns, neither cared. They stood together, waiting for whatever the wastes would bring next.